So before we run through the basic setup, actually, I just want to point out there's quite a bit of setting when it comes to the GA4 accounts. So I put just some examples here in the top. On the left side, the big picture, you're going to see a general account settings. That's where you're going to have to go through and kind of opt into all your marketing, communication, tech, and your technical support. There's a few other acknowledgements there. Recommend reading that stuff. It's actually not too long. It's probably valuable to your specific businesses and websites. Below that's reporting and identity. If anyone here has a large enough website getting enough traffic, you can enable the modeling property, which it further enhances your data using some AI ML models, which I'm sure is quite interesting. Data retention, top right, can be chosen as well. It looks like you can see there that there's a 2 months and a 14 months option. We're also going to discuss how you can eliminate that altogether. And then the bottom right, the attribution settings is the last, and that's where you're going to basically check what's your primary attribution model you want to use, how long you want to use the window, whatnot. We really do advise everybody to carefully review all the settings and acknowledgements, especially because you're going to have to acknowledge things for data and whatnot for GDPR and how it's stored and whatnot. But the good news is they actually did Google provided a basic setup checklist. I'm being a little bit just about that because it's not super helpful, but it is great to review. So we're going to jump right into it. Here's the setup assistant. You're going to find it in your admin at the bottom left. You click that and you're going to have 2 columns essentially. At the top of the second column, you're going to find setup assistant. It's 7 steps plus the advanced optional setups. We're just going to go through these 7 steps real quick. Step 1 is going to be set up your data. This is actually really pretty straightforward. And if you look real close, you're also going to get your events here as well. You can set up a website or an app technically. It's really user-friendly. You kind of like a few click process. Boom, you're good to go, and you have your data, and you can mark it off if you want the checklist. It's not necessary. Next is Google Signals. So Google Signals is a 3-step process, I should say. It's really easy. It's basically just 3 OKs, but I would recommend reading this. It's not too much reading, by the way, but it basically is going to describe to you what Google Signals does, and that's basically some type of event tracking. Although in some instances we've read about there may be some limitations once you turn on Signal in your data. So I'd recommend looking that up or meeting with us in the future to discuss that further. Because it may not be the best for every business. But the fine print here actually is kind of interesting. So I definitely recommend giving that a brief read before you. Next is going to be the conversion event. It's quite simple. Once you have all your events available, you can either add one into here or you can create a custom event as well. Next step 4 is to define the audiences. Defining audiences is just using your logic from your GA4 account in order to create specific segments of who's coming to your website. You can utilize these later in your ads, which is the importance of why you would add them for the most part. But also, like I said previously, you can also create these within reporting just by creating some filters and then just adding it as a segment. And then within the segments, you can build an audience. Quite straightforward from the explore part. So step 5 is linking to Google Ads. And this is actually really easy. If you already have your Google Ads account and you're all linked in and you're signed in, it's basically just going to be as easy as choosing the property and then moving forward. So the last 2 steps though, however, step 6 and step 7, where you're going to bid on conversions and where you're going to target ads with these audiences, those are going to be done directly in the Google ad property and not Google for. So really what's on that checklist, you'll just be marking to confirm once you've done that in the other application. And though if you are using a UA conversion metric currently, you have around 10 days to move over, July 1st. I'm not certain it'll actually interrupt the marketing because I don't know Google would do that to themselves. I think that would be smart for business, but I would definitely still recommend getting your GA4 property. That kind of completes the easy basic setup, but the advanced setup you see here is just a few more items which we're going to set up. We're going to move through a little bit later after we go through them. So of course, we just went through the Google Ads the Google Ad, Google Analytics integration. So we're going to seamlessly, we're going to look at this as well. So here are all of the products. Like I just said, Google Ad was the one that we just looked at connecting. All you have to do is select your property. So these are essentially plugin APIs, and they're currently available off the shelf. There's 9 of them. The ones that we're not going to review today, I put on the screen, but we are going to review those that are starred, including Search Console, Google Ads, and Query, and some of the outputs of what you get and how powerful these tools are once you connect them. So, of course, you have Ads Manager, Display and Video 360, Merchant Center, which if anybody watched the Google Marketing Live video, you'll see that Merchant Center Next is coming, which is essentially, I guess, an AI version of Merchant Center. Sounds like Google's doing a lot right now to integrate their various apps and try and make them a bit more based on machine learning. The next is Optimize, which is sunsetting. It's actually being replaced by Google, actually by GA4. So it'll be interesting to see what other features we receive from that. Lastly, Google Play and Google Ads. So moving into the next slide, here's Search Console. This is basically one of the reports you receive, or two of the reports you receive once you connect Search Console. What's great is you can choose various dates and as well as various ways of looking at this data. The great benefits are the combined data analysis. Clearly, you can see the benefit of seeing all your SEO directly in your Google Analytics right next to your ads to see whether folks are coming in through one or the other. I've noticed personally a complementary nature of ads and organic as well. So it's really important to be analyzing those two together as you may be spending where you don't need to. Search Query Insights is really interesting. You're going to be looking at all the various words that you're landing in terms of impressions, where you're landing, in terms of the average page height. It's been a really useful tool that we've used at work plenty. The conversion attributions as well, completely necessary. This is where you can kind of pick up some knowledge about how you should maybe use which keywords you should use in your strategy. And there's just plenty of benefit once you connect Google Console. Google Ads, of course, we already touched on this and how to connect it, but the benefit of this is having all of your data that you could be looking at in Google Ads, which isn't the best in terms of analyzing, directly in GA4. So what's great about this, you're seeing everything right next to the rest of your campaigns. So if you have non-Google campaigns, for instance, a Facebook Meta campaign, you can see those side by side and see their performance based on the attribution, based on the spend. And how would you do that based on the spend with Facebook and GA4? Well, you can actually input. So their steps are listed on the screen. Not going to go through it right now based on the time frame, but essentially it's a great use of tool because you can have everything in one location in a reporting tool that's free. Last thing we're going to go over is BigQuery. So BigQuery is essentially like the high level, more advanced way of looking at your data. This is where you're going to have all of your data in a meta environment, if you will. All of these rows, are the events. And if you see each row is split up, those are going to be the metadata for the various points within these events. And what's great about this data is it's pretty much enabling you to do anything you want. Going to the next screen real quick, just want to show an example. This is some time series data on the left of users that visited a website from impressions and when they converted. You push this type of data through a Shapley value, a Markov chain model, and you're getting out some analysis that you never would have seen before in a different type of MMM model or something. And not to get too market, I know a lot of people here are website people, but this is the type of power that comes out of this data, and this is the type of data that can be fed back into your websites in order to make them better. So moving into the advanced setup, Victor, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, Zach, thank you. Let's take a look at some of the synergies between GA4 and Google Tag Manager. These are the events that you get with Tag Manager. There's default event types: first session, first visit, session start, user engagement. Those are all default. Those come with Google Analytics naturally. There's the enhanced measurement events. Those need to be turned on in the Google Analytics for admin console. So that it's not too hard to find. I think Zach just showed you where those are at. Then there's industry specific recommended events. Those are going to be for like retailers, and I think there's a couple for government websites, some different stuff like that. The meat and potatoes of all this for GA4 is going to be custom events. Custom events are those ones that you create in Tag Manager as a tag. You set up a trigger that will fire based on, I don't know, like a CSS class. Can fire based on a lot of different clicks. So many different things you can have those triggers fire for. And those allow you to attach the parameters that Zach was talking about via these different variables. And then you have to map these variables back from a data layer. So slide here. Google Analytics 4 and Tag Manager. So these are just some of the reasons why I think most people or anyone that has a GA4 setup should be using Tag Manager over a lot of the other like G tags. Like you can set up G tags straight up to fire straight to Google Analytics, or even there's some other websites that I think we're going to cover here next. So the ease of use, all of these items make GA4 much more powerful. Sorry. And then here we'll move into a lot of people that submitted their like, what do you use GA4 for when you signed up for this meeting? Wrote Monster Insights. They wanted to learn about Monster Insights, which we personally don't have anything against Monster Insights. Monster Insights is suitable for users who require like limited data and who are willing to, incur ongoing costs. This might be for the less experienced user. However, Google Tag Manager offers extensive capabilities for free, with a lot more power. And then, if you just one-time setup with this stuff, other than like Zach was saying, you have to check back for updates and stuff. One-time setup, you're usually good to go for a while. Then you got to check back on every 6 months or so, make sure everything. Let's skip to the next slide for Google Tag Manager. So this is kind of how Google Tag Manager operates. The container is really what everything falls into. So the container holds the tags. Tags are associated with different triggers, and those variables go inside the tags. I have a visual here on the slide. So here you can see an infographic that I made that represents the GTM framework. You can see how tags are contained within the GTM container, and they're associated with triggers and variables. In a moment, I'm going to demonstrate how to set up your first configuration tag, and we're going to set up a click as well. While there's alternatives, G tags and Monster Insights, we really recommend using Google Tag Manager. Another big thing about using something like Monster Insights or a G tag, it limits you from having the ability to move your Google Tag Manager into server-side tag setup, which gives you enhanced data privacy. It improves page load times because you're choosing what you want to fire and when you want to fire it versus everything firing all the time. Increases the data accuracy. You can customize, like I just said, what you send to vendors if you don't want this or that being sent to Facebook. Before Google was anonymizing IPs, this was something that, the people were just getting no matter what, big PII issue. One of the biggest things about GTM is the ability to set up with server-side tagging. It's cookie handling, so you can set those cookies from the server side. And let's move into the next here. So I'll get back to that server-side thing in a second. So here's the data layer. This data layer is essentially placed on your website, and it holds the data parameters of different things that people are doing when those events are happening. And so you set this data layer to get filled, and it allows Tag Manager to be able to pull those variables back in through the tags and triggers. So then when those tags fire, they send back to GA4. Also with GTM4WP, it's a cool plugin. It has a very limited data layer that comes for free, and it's unlike a lot of these paid versions, but it's simple. It doesn't have everything, but it's a good one to have.
Just to jump in right here, I kind of realized we didn't really include much on user ID in here, and I want to do I don't want to do you guys a disservice. Basically, just to jump in, Google's really allowing you to track users over different types of periods at this point in terms of timeframes across devices and everything. So there's this thing called a user pseudo ID. What's so important about the server-side tagging is you're able to enable this user pseudo ID and then collect people's user IDs, whether they're logging into your website. You're collecting their basically when they're Google Signals is essentially when you're logging into someone with your Google account. That's the Google Signals. So basically, what it's doing is this comprehensive view on folks, and you're able to track them much better. So just want to point out that's really the importance of Tag Manager and the server-side tagging. You're able to get to the place where we were in BigQuery, where you have the row event level data with all the metadata, and it's connecting to your merchant source. It's connecting to every app that you have. Your IDs from those other apps are in your data here, so you're able to map your customers to your different database. Incredible.
Yep. No, we can hop to the next slide. So that's kind of what I was getting to here. So this diagram illustrates the difference between client-side and server-side tagging. Client-side in this case is just Google Tag Manager without server-side. The one on the right, server-side tagging. Unlike client-side tagging, which sends data through the client's browser, server-side tagging transmits the data from the server, which here we have it as a subdomain analytics.yoursite. So the data is going to send from there. It reduces some of that lag on the user side. It's more secure, meaning server-side tagging. It improves the load speeds, it enhances data quality. for businesses with complex tracking needs, like Zach was covering, or stringent data concerns, like companies that operate in Europe and Brazil and all these GDPR countries. It's good to have server-side tagging set up so you can really craft what you're sending to who and what you're actually collecting.
Right. If you don't want everyone's tag, all their pixels all over your website, you can essentially just have yours and pass them the information that you want to pass.
Cool.
So I think that's going to lead us